Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're continuing our study of the matriarchs, the women that we really get to know in the book of Genesis. And we're continuing, and I think we'll conclude our study of Hagar today. So when we left last time, Hagar had borne Abraham his firstborn son. And as God instructed, he's called Ishmael. God hears. But we also saw that Hagar is the only woman in the Old Testament to assign a name to God, um, and to name God. And she names Yahweh, a name that basically means existence, the one who is, the one who exists, the Yahweh who sees. Instead of Yahweh of armies or Yahweh exalted or Yahweh most high, she calls him Yahweh who sees because she said, "You are the God who sees me." Um, well, 14 years later, because Abraham is 76 when Ishmael is born, and he's 100 when Isaac is born. 14 years later, Isaac is born, and the actual son of promise is born, the one through whom God will keep all the promises he made back in chapter 12 and subsequently to Abraham. And Sarah, whose relationship with Hagar has been rocky, is not going to want Isaac to have a brother around to share the inheritance with. And so when there's an opportunity to tell Abraham to kick them out of the household, she does. And that's what we read about today. Now, before we read this, and we're going to read chapter 21, verses 8 through 20, 18, 8 through 21. Let's remember what happens in chapter 22. In chapter 22, God takes Isaac to one of the mountains of Moriah to sacrifice him. And Isaac is the same age. He's a Na'arim. He's a youth. He's a teenager. And in the same way that Abraham lifts up his eyes to see the ram in the thicket, Hagar lifts up her eyes to see a source of water so that they will not die of dehydration that God has provided. And these two stories are so parallel, and we never teach this. I was never taught this. I just reading, observe this. These are pendant stories. These are stories that parallel. In the same way that Ishmael, with his mother Hagar, has a deliverance story involving Yahweh providing. Isaac, in the next chapter, the very next chapter, his little brother at the same age, will have a similar story with his father, and seeing God provide. Not something to drink, but something to eat, which they don't eat, of course, they sacrifice to God. But anyway, they are pendant stories. They're connected to each other. They parallel each other. And as I said last time, ask any of your Muslim friends about the sons of Abraham, and they will be quick to point out that Ishmael, their father, is the firstborn son of Abraham. And of course, chronologically, biologically, they are right. Isaac is the monogenes, the unique, the one and only. Um, but Ishmael is the firstborn. There's no disputing that. It's there in Scripture. The child grew, Isaac, and was weaned. I'm in 21, verse 8. Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, mocking. Therefore she said to Abraham, "Drive out this maid and her son, for the son of this maid shall not be an heir with my son Isaac." There's so much class venom. There's so much racial animosity. There's so much I'm better, you're less than in that verse between the two women in Sarah's mind. And the matter distressed Abram greatly because of his son. Abram loves Ishmael and has been his dad for 14 years and has been a good dad to him for 14 years. But God said to Abraham, "Don't be distressed because of the lad and your maid. Whatever Sarah tells you to do, listen to her. For through Isaac your descendants shall be named. And of the son of the maid I will make a nation, because he is your son." So Abraham rose early in the morning, took bread and a skin of water, and gave them to Hagar, putting them on her shoulder, and gave her the boy, and sent her away. and she departed and wandered about in the wilderness of Beersheba. Beersheba is towards the Sinai Peninsula. I mean, the Arabian Peninsula, not the Sinai Peninsula, which is where she'd wandered before. And remember, her name means someone who has fled or who is wandering. Excuse me. I have so many questions about this part. Okay, God said, Sarah's right. Maybe for the wrong reasons. God didn't say that. I'm saying that, but Sarah's right. There can be no question about who's your heir. And so you need to send Ishmael away. But don't worry about that. I'm going to take care of him. I'm going to make him a great nation, which is, you can't do that if you're not taking care of him, keeping him alive and making him succeed. I'm going to take care of him. So you just send him away. That's partially the answer to my big question, which is Abraham is rich. I mean, Jeff Bezos rich. Really, he has his own security force. He has his own army that can go out and beat the armies of nation states, with God's help, of course. But he's rich. Um, why does he send them away with a loaf of bread and a skin of water, not even a camel to ride or a mule to ride? Why did he do that? Um, I couldn't do that. I can't imagine doing that. But God did promise to take care of them. So there is that. Okay. Um, the water in the skin was used up. She left the boy under one of the bushes, and she went and sat down opposite him, about a bow shot away. That could be 100 yards. For she said, "Do not let me see the boy die." And she sat opposite him and lifted up her voice and wept. And God heard the lad crying. That's his name, by the way. God hears. He heard Ishmael crying. And the angel of God called to Hagar, just like the angel of God calls to Abraham in the next chapter. Called to Hagar from heaven, and he said to her, "What is the matter with you, Hagar? Do not be afraid. God has heard the voice of the lad where he is. Arise, lift up the lad, hold him by the hand, for I will make a great nation of him." And when she opened her eyes, she saw a well of water, and she went and filled the skin with water and gave the lad a drink. And God was with the lad, and he grew, and he lived in the wilderness and became an archer, and he lived in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt. By the time he's of marriageable age, they are of sufficient wealth that she can go back home to Egypt and select the appropriate bride and pay the bride price for her son. God has kept all of his promises to Abraham and to Hagar concerning Sarah. Hagar is a much more important figure than we want to admit. And she just is. she receives, as I said, she has two long stories just devoted to her. There's not that amount of time devoted solely to Sarah, like it is devoted solely to Hagar. And I think we come to know a great deal about her. I do, to come to sympathize with her, empathize with her, love her, appreciate her, for the lot in life she found herself in, and how when God told her to do something, even if it was hard, like go back home to this abusive mistress, she did that thing, and she believed in the promises of God more completely in the moment than Sarah did. Now, Sarah's the one who makes it to Hebrews 11, and for good reason. But let's not diminish in any way how important Hagar is to this story and all we learn from her. Okay, that's nearly 9 good minutes today. Thank you for joining us. We'll talk about Rebecca next time.